I always thought I'd enjoy being alone in the house. I'd even fantasized about it: quiet evenings, no pagers buzzing, no shifts dragging past midnight. Just me, a cold beer, and something mildly entertaining on TV. But there's something no one tells you about being truly alone. Silence has a sound, and sometimes, a shape. My name's Evan. I'm 29, a paramedic in Jacksonville, Florida. It's not glamorous, but I'm good at it. You learn to live in high-stress environments and think fast. You also learn how to ignore fear until it's the kind that follows you home. It all started on a Friday. My wife had driven to Pensacola to visit her parents. I kissed her goodbye around noon and promised I'd call before bed. The usual. I even joked that I'd spend the weekend binging horror movies she couldn't stand. Looking back, I wish I'd said something else. The first night alone was peaceful. For the first time in weeks, I could hear my thoughts. The house had the stillness to it, like it was exhaling. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and collapsed onto the couch. A thriller was playing, something with a serial killer hiding in plain sight. Halfway through, around 11:15 p.m., I paused to grab some water. That's when I noticed it. Our kitchen has a sliding glass door that faces the backyard. We've got a small lawn, a fence around it, and in the far left corner, the shed. It came with the house. Weathered wood, a bit of rust on the latch. We never really used it, except to toss in random junk: old hoses, broken Christmas lights, a folding chair missing a leg. It was harmless. Until I saw it. There was someone or something standing inside the shed. At first, I thought it was the reflection of the moon, or maybe some shadow cast from a tree. But I took a step closer and felt every hair on my arms rise. It wasn't a shadow. It was a figure. Human-shaped. Perfectly still. Just standing there. Inside the shed. In the dark. My breath caught in my throat. My first instinct was to rationalize, maybe a neighbor messing around. But our yard was fenced in. Maybe something hanging from the rafters? But it was too symmetrical. Too solid. It wasn't swaying. It wasn't distorted by light. It was waiting. I reached for the switch and turned on the porch light. Nothing changed. The figure didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just stayed there. Frozen. My heart hammered as I stepped to the glass. I couldn't see the face. The shed door was cracked open just enough to show a sliver of darkness, and the figure within it. Close to the door. Too close. I locked the sliding door without taking my eyes off it. Something in my gut twisted like a knife. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was that thing before fear. The primal knowing that something is wrong. I backed away slowly, phone in hand. But I didn't call the cops. Not yet. What would I say? Hi, I think there's someone standing in my shed. No, they're not moving. Yes, I'm sure. No, I haven't gone outside. I stood in the dark kitchen for a long while, just watching. And then it was gone. Just gone. I blinked. Rubbed my eyes. Stepped to the glass again. The shed door was still slightly open, but the figure had vanished. The backyard was still. No wind. No sound. Just that deafening nothing that presses on your ears when the world forgets to breathe. I closed the curtain. I didn't sleep much that night. Every creak of the house became a footstep. Every passing shadow a silhouette. Every silence, a presence. At around 2 a.m., I swore I heard a scrape just outside my bedroom window. Like something brushing against the vinyl siding. Not harsh, deliberate. Soft. Too soft. I didn't move. I just lay there, eyes wide, staring at the dark ceiling. Listening. Waiting for it to come again. But it didn't. Eventually, sleep dragged me under, not restfully, but the way your body shuts down under pressure. Like fainting with your eyes open. The next morning, everything looked exactly the same. Too much so. The shed still sat in the corner, quiet and unbothered. The fence was intact. The grass, still damp with dew, looked untouched. Still, something in me itched deep beneath the skin. I grabbed my shoes, slipped on a hoodie, and made my way to the garage. I grabbed my old crowbar not because I wanted a fight, but because I needed something in my hand if I was going out there. The air was thick, heavy with morning humidity. The kind that clings to your skin. Each step toward the shed felt like wading through water. When I reached the door, I paused. I tapped the crowbar against the wooden frame. No sound inside. No rustle. No shifting. I pushed the door open. The usual mess, tools, cardboard boxes, mildew-stained gear. But the dust on the floor told a different story. There were footprints. Not mine. They led from the back wall straight to the door. One set. Barefoot. Deep enough to break the surface of dust. Someone had been standing there, facing the wall, for a long time. I staggered back. My mind tried to stitch this into a reasonable explanation, but there was none. Whoever had been there, was inside while I was in the house. Watching. Waiting. I don't remember walking back into the house. I know I locked the shed door twice, maybe 3 times. I know I checked the fence again. Every plank. Every corner. I even walked the perimeter of the house with my eyes wide and my jaw clenched, crowbar in hand like it meant something. But after that, it's all a blur. What I do remember is sitting at the kitchen table, clutching a mug of coffee that had long gone cold. The backyard stared back at me through the curtain like an open mouth. I didn't call the police. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid of how ridiculous it would sound. Maybe I was afraid of being told what I already knew: no forced entry, no crime, no cause. Maybe the real fear wasn't that someone had been in my shed, but that someone might still be watching. That night, I installed a motion-activated floodlight above the back porch. I ordered a new outdoor camera for the backyard rush shipping. I even left the crowbar leaning by the back door like a faithful old dog. My wife texted me good night from Pensacola, sent a picture of her parents, the usual warmth and comfort. I told her everything was fine. She didn't need to worry. Because the truth, I didn't want her to come back yet. Not into this. This wasn't a joke anymore. This wasn't just a weird shadow. Something had been in that shed. Someone. And they had gotten in without leaving a trace. That second night was worse. The fear wasn't sharp anymore, it was dull, seeping. It clung to the walls, settled into the cushions of the couch, soaked into the mattress beneath me. I kept the lights on, the curtains closed, and the volume low on the TV. At around 1:45 a.m., I heard it again. Scraping. Right outside the bedroom window. I froze in bed, clutching my phone in one hand, the other gripping the edge of the blanket like it would save me. The sound came again, slow, deliberate, like a fingernail tracing the frame of the window. I didn't get up. I didn't check. I just lay there, heart jackhammering, breath shallow, sweat cooling on my temples. Then, silence. That was somehow worse. I waited 10, 20, maybe 30 minutes before getting up. Every step down the hallway felt like it echoed. I checked every window. Every door. All locked. No footprints outside. No broken glass. Just stillness. Like whatever had been there was testing me. The next morning, I found nothing new. Except for the shed door. It was open again. Why this time? Swung fully open, like it was inviting me. I know I locked it. I know I did. That lock was rusted shut. You'd need force to open it. but there it was, hanging open like a yawn. I didn't go in. Not that morning. That afternoon, the new camera arrived. I set it up to face the shed directly, just above the back porch light. It synced to my phone, ready to alert me to any motion. Part of me felt a strange sense of control again, like I had installed a second set of eyes. A guardian. The illusion of safety is a powerful drug. I turned in early that night. Didn't watch anything. Didn't eat much. Just lay in bed, staring at the feed on my phone, one eye open, mind counting down the hours until dawn. I drifted into sleep sometime past 3 a.m. I dreamt of someone whispering through the glass. Around 5:12 a.m., the motion alert went off. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I woke up instantly, like I'd been waiting for it. My hands trembled as I unlocked the screen and opened the app. The camera feed loaded slowly, painfully. At first, nothing. Then, a man. Standing in front of the shed. Facing the house. He wasn't moving. He didn't approach. He just stood there. Watching. He was tall. Unshaven. Wearing something dark and saggy. His arms hung at his sides. His head tilted slightly, just enough to make it look wrong, unnatural. He didn't blink. Didn't shift. Didn't breathe. He just stood there, still as a corpse, for 5 straight minutes. And then? He turned. Not toward the gate. Not toward the fence. He turned slowly, mechanically, and walked behind the shed. But the camera never picked him up again. He never came out the other side. 1 second, he was there. The next, gone. I replayed it over and over. Frame by frame. There was no blind spot. No shadow large enough to hide a man. He simply disappeared. I didn't go outside that morning. I didn't open the blinds. I didn't even eat breakfast. I sat on the couch until the sun was fully up, clutching my phone like a lifeline, staring at that image, frame 327, timestamp 05:13:22, a man, mid-turn, eyes fixed on my bedroom window. Later that day, I called a fence company. Booked an appointment for Monday. Higher fence. Reinforced gate. I also ordered a second camera. And a floodlight for the side yard. My wife texted to say she'd be home tomorrow. I told her I missed her. That the house felt empty without her. I didn't say a word about the man in the shed. Not yet. That night, I didn't sleep at all. The TV stayed off. The lights stayed on. And I kept the crowbar beside me. As I sat on the couch in the heavy dark, I watched the shed on my phone. Waiting. Wondering. What did he want? Why had he come? And would he be back? I didn't mean to fall asleep on the couch, but sometime before sunrise, I must have drifted off. I woke up drenched in sweat, even though the air was cool. The TV was off. My phone battery was dead. And the worst part? The curtain, the one over the back door, was open. Just a sliver. Barely a hand's width. But it hadn't been opened before. I know that for a fact. I had shut them tightly. Pulled them taut. Now, it looked like someone had pulled it back from the outside. Just enough to peek in. I stood slowly, heart in my throat, afraid to look but knowing I had to. The shed door was open again. Wide. Not drifting or ajar, flung wide like it had been yanked open. The morning light hadn't even touched the yard yet. The world still hung in that blue-gray limbo between night and day, where shadows don't behave like they should. I grabbed the crowbar. No hesitation this time. I was done waiting. I slid into my shoes, unlocked the back door, and stepped outside. The grass was damp and slick beneath my feet, and the air had a strange weight to it, as if holding its breath. Each step toward the shed made me feel more like a child walking into a nightmare I couldn't explain. My jaw was clenched so tight it ached. I reached the door and paused, my free hand resting on the edge of the frame. There was no sound from inside. I tapped the crowbar against the frame once, twice. Still nothing. Then I pushed the door open. It was the same cluttered mess, boxes, broken tools, old yard decorations. Nothing seemed disturbed. But the air inside, it was colder. Dead still. Then I saw them again. Footprints. Fresh ones. This time clearer. More deliberate. A path of dust-cleared shapes leading from the far wall to the center of the shed, where they just stopped. No return prints. No drag marks. As if whoever or whatever was there had never left. I stepped inside, careful not to disturb the prints. The crowbar trembled slightly in my hand. The further in I went, the more I noticed something I hadn't seen before. On the back wall, almost hidden behind a stack of collapsed boxes, was a hole. No bigger than a shoebox, partially obscured by insulation and old nails. But it was fresh. The wood around it had been broken inward. From the outside. Something had gotten in. No, someone had gotten in. And maybe, never left. I backed out slowly. Closed the shed. Locked it with shaking hands. Then checked every inch of the fence line again. Still no breaks. Still no explanation. When my wife got home that evening, I told her just enough. I said there had been some weird activity in the yard. Enough to justify the motion lights, the cameras. But not enough to panic her. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and called me paranoid but cute. I smiled back. I didn't tell her about the man. About the video. About the footprints. I didn't tell her what I had started to wonder. What if he wasn't just watching? What if he had already been inside? A few nights later, after things had quieted, I checked the footage again. I told myself it was just to clear my head. To prove I'd imagined it all. That stress was making me see things. That's when I found the clip. It was from the morning after the shed had last opened. Around 5:07 a.m. There, in crystal clarity, stood the same man. Facing the house. Still as stone. But this time, he did something different. He lifted one hand. And slowly, very slowly. He pointed. At the window. At me. Then he turned. And as before, vanished. No exit. Just gone. Like he'd never been real to begin with. That was 6 months ago. Nothing's happened since. No more open doors. No more camera alerts. But sometimes, when I pass by the back window early in the morning, I swear I see something shift behind the curtain. Just a flicker. A movement. Like someone ducking out of sight. And more than once, I've woken up to find the shed door unlatched. Still closed, but not locked. Almost like someone's waiting. Watching. Checking if I've forgotten. But I haven't. I never forget now. I shut the curtains tight. I check the locks 3 times. And when I sleep, I keep my back to the wall. Because I've learned something most people don't know. Sometimes the scariest part of being home alone, is realizing you're not. They say the first few nights in a new house are the hardest. New creaks. New shadows. New silences. I used to believe that was all part of settling in until I moved into 12 Maple Ridge Lane. My name's Aaron. I'm 30 years old, a software developer who prefers code to conversation. After years of apartment living, I finally bought my first house, a 2-story colonial tucked in a quiet neighborhood in Manchester, New Hampshire. Clean. Suburban. Safe. Or so I thought. The house sat at the end of a street lined with identical white mailboxes and modest flower beds. The kind of place where kids ride scooters after school and neighbors wave politely but don't ask questions. That suited me just fine. I moved in during late fall. The air was crisp, the leaves brittle underfoot. Everything smelled of damp wood and fading sun. It was perfect. I had plans upgrade the home office, install smart lights, finally try that standing desk. But mostly, I just wanted solitude. And for the first few nights, that's exactly what I got. I kept my routine. Work late, wind down with some streaming shows, crash around 2 o'clock or 3 a.m. My job is flexible, and I've always worked best when the world is asleep. The silence of the house at night was soothing. Almost sacred. Until the fourth night. I had just shut my laptop and kicked back on the couch, remote in hand, when the doorbell rang. It startled me not because of the sound itself, but because of the time. 3 a.m. No one visits at 3 a.m. I paused, staring toward the door like it might explain itself. The house was still. The porch light, automated to turn off at midnight, was dark. I picked up my phone and tapped into the doorbell cam feed. Nothing. No motion. No one standing there. Just the porch bathed in grainy, colorless quiet. Must be a glitch, I thought. Or maybe a prank. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I told myself I was being dramatic, double-checked the locks, and went to bed. But sleep didn't come easily after that. The next night, it happened again. Same time. 3 a.m. Same chime. Same emptiness on the feed. This time, I stared at the live camera footage for 10 straight minutes after it rang. No movement. No shadows. No wind. Nothing. And yet, I could feel it. The hairs on my arms prickled, my pulse quickened, my skin went cold. It was like the very walls were holding their breath. By the third night, I was ready. I didn't go to bed. I sat in the living room with the lights off, phone in hand, eyes locked on the camera feed. At exactly 2:59 a.m., I leaned forward. Tick. Tick. Ding dong. I flinched. On the screen nothing. No sign of life. Just that unblinking digital eye watching an empty porch. But my body disagreed with what the screen showed. My heart thudded in my chest. Something was out there. I knew it. I didn't know how, I just did. That kind of dread, it doesn't need evidence. I started to talk to the neighbors. One woman across the street gave me a sympathetic look and said maybe it was kids. Local teens like to ring and run, she said. Especially when someone new moves in. But no one could explain the consistency. Every night. 3 a.m. on the dot. And the camera never caught anything. I began staying up later. Sleeping less. I installed an additional motion detecting camera aimed directly at the porch. I even ran a software diagnostic to rule out tech issues. But each night, the results were the same. Ding dong. No one there. And the longer it went on, the more I began to notice the feeling. The presence. The certainty that something or someone was watching me. Not randomly. Specifically. Deliberately. Me. On the sixth night, I didn't sit in the living room. I stood in the foyer, just out of sight of the front door, crowbar in hand, phone in the other. I was done being passive. 2:59 a.m. ticked by. My eyes locked on the time. And then, ding dong. A wave of nausea rolled through me. I opened the live feed instantly. Still nothing. No movement. No sound. No explanation. I turned the doorknob slowly, every nerve in my body screaming not to. But I needed answers. I opened the door. The porch was empty. The street silent. Not even the wind stirred. Still. I felt it. Like breath on the back of my neck. I stood there, frozen, as the fear took shape inside me, not like a scream, but like a whisper I couldn't unhear. You're not alone. I closed the door and locked it. Twice. That night, I sat at my desk until sunrise, staring at the wall, too afraid to look at the camera feed, too afraid not to. Because the truth was finally sinking in. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't tech failure. And this wasn't going away. It was coming. Every night. At exactly 3 a.m. Not to break in. Not to rob me. Just to let me know. It was there. I stopped sleeping. Not just because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to. Each night, the bell rang. And each night, nothing was there. But something was happening. I could feel it, like a virus threading itself through my thoughts, subtle at first, then louder, bolder. It was like the silence itself had become infected. I started to keep notes. Night 7, 3 a.m, doorbell rang. Camera triggered, no movement. Porch empty. Slight delay between ring and motion sensor alert. Felt watched. Night 8, 3 a.m, ring again. This time twice, back to back. Nothing on camera. Still no physical signs of tampering. Stared at the door for 30 minutes afterward. Couldn't stop trembling. Night 9, no ring. Stayed up anyway. Watched the footage back. At 2:58 a.m, a shadow moved brief, like a shape passing in front of the porch light. But too tall. Too slow. Slowed the clip down to 10%, still barely visible. Rewatched it 15 times. Still don't know what I saw. I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't dreaming this. Something was out there. On the 10th night, I took things further. I set up a second motion camera, this one inside the house, facing the front door from the hallway. I figured if something physical passed near the entry, even invisible to the outside cam, maybe the interior would catch it. I also laid out a thin layer of baking flour across the doormat. Call it desperation. Call it genius. I didn't care. I wanted proof. That night, I sat in the dark, earbuds in, listening to the faint static of the camera mic. I didn't even look at the clock anymore. I just listened. And when the bell rang, ding dong, soft but cutting, I didn't even flinch. I just pressed record. Live feed. Outside cam, nothing. Inside cam, nothing. But when I stood up and opened the front door, I stopped breathing. The flour was disturbed. Not footprints. Not smudges. A perfect circle. About the size of a human head. Right in the center of the mat. No trail leading to it. No displacement around the edges. Just one perfect press into the flour. As if someone had bent down and pressed their face into the mat. Like they'd been lying there. I slammed the door shut so hard the house shook. That night, I turned off every light and sat with my back against the wall, crowbar grip so tight it cut into my palm. The following day, I called my old friend Jackson, a security specialist who installs smart systems for commercial clients. I lied. Told him I suspected a stalker or disgruntled ex-client. He didn't ask questions. By evening, I had 3 additional infrared motion cameras installed, 2 outside, 1 inside. All synced to my phone. But I knew deep down I was no longer dealing with something explainable. Something was playing with me. Testing the boundaries. And I was losing ground. That night was the worst yet. Not because the doorbell rang, because it didn't. There was no ring. No alert. No noise. Just a presence. Around 3:15 a.m., I woke from an uneasy doze on the couch. The room was cold, colder than it should have been. The kind of cold that feels like breath. I sat up, disoriented. And then I heard it. Tapping. Not the door. The window. Slow, rhythmic. Tap. 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 I turned my head toward the living room window and every muscle in my body seized. There, just beyond the curtain, was a shape. Indistinct. Not pressed against the glass. Not peeking in. Just, standing there. A figure in silhouette. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. The tapping stopped. But the shape remained. I reached slowly for my phone and tapped the live feed. Nothing. All cameras showed empty yards. Still. Silent. Devoid of life. But I could see it. With my own eyes. Right outside. It wasn't in the cameras. It wasn't on the footage. But it was there. It was here. I stayed in that position until morning light bled into the room. Only when the sun rose high enough to cast golden lines across the floor did I dare open the curtain. The yard was empty. But something scratched at the back of my mind, like a whisper I couldn't quite hear. I looked down at the floor and saw the crowbar. Lying 2 feet away from where I had placed it. Not dropped. Not knocked. Moved. Deliberately. By now, I was unraveling. I called out of work. I stopped responding to emails. My voice messages piled up. I hadn't showered in 2 days. Food didn't taste right anymore. Water smelled like metal. It was like the house had turned against me. Or worse, like it was a vessel. A shell. And something had moved in. And I was just another occupant. Then came the night of the face. I set the cameras to record continuously. I kept my phone charged. I stayed off the couch, pacing like a caged animal. At 3:02 a.m., I got a push notification. Motion detected. I opened the feed with trembling hands. The front porch cam had picked up something. At first, it was just the light flickering like before. Then, a figure faded into view. Only it wasn't walking. It wasn't approaching. It was just appearing. Like smoke taking shape. The longer I watched, the more it solidified arms, shoulders, torso. A man-shaped outline. But no face. Where features should have been, there was only blankness. Not pixelation. Not blurring. Just smooth, pale nothing. It hovered inches from the lens. And then, as if it knew I was watching, it tilted its head. As if studying me. Recognizing me. And smiled. Or tried to. The mouth twisted slightly, just enough to simulate an expression. It was mocking. I dropped the phone. I didn't scream. I couldn't. Whatever fear had been growing inside me finally cracked. I stumbled backward, breath shallow, heart sprinting. It wasn't just haunting me. It wasn't just tormenting me. It was learning me. Observing me. And worse. It wanted me to know. After the night of the faceless figure, I didn't turn the cameras back on. I couldn't. Not because I didn't want to see what might come next, but because I knew I wouldn't be able to look away. And some things, you shouldn't watch for too long. They start watching back. I left the house the next morning. No packing. No plan. I just walked out with my keys, wallet, and the phone I could barely bring myself to touch. Drove for hours with no destination, no music, just the rhythm of tires over asphalt and the pounding in my ears. I needed distance. I needed proof that I could still escape. But wherever I drove, it felt like I was dragging something with me. A shadow stitched into my skin. A whisper in the rearview mirror. I checked into a motel by the interstate that night. Cheap. Dusty. A room with an air conditioner that groaned louder than it cooled. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching the blank screen of the hotel TV, afraid it might flicker on by itself. Afraid the door might knock once. Just once. At 3 a.m., I stared at my phone. No notifications. No footage. Just the empty clock. But I swear. For a split second, I heard it. Ding dong. So faint it could have been my imagination. But it wasn't. I knew that sound. I knew it too well. I stayed away for 5 days. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't answer messages. Didn't go back to work. And still, the feeling never left me. It was like the thing had embedded itself into my memory. Or worse, like it was inside something deeper. My perception. My instincts. The core of my being. When I finally returned home, everything looked the same. Too same. The blinds I had left half drawn were now shut tight. The interior camera turned off by me was now on. And the crowbar? Gone. Just, gone. Like it had never existed. I didn't check the porch. I didn't check the cameras. I went straight upstairs and sat on my bed in the dark for what felt like hours, until the sunlight began to creep in through the cracks in the blinds. That's when I heard the voicemail. My phone had updated while I was away, pulling in messages that had stacked up. Most were junk. Except one. Timestamp 3:01 a.m., the night before. It was only 6 seconds long. And there was no caller ID. Just static. Until the last 2 seconds, when something whispered. I see you. I dropped the phone. Screamed. Punched the wall until my knuckles split open. But the message was still there. It couldn't be deleted. Every time I tried, it just reappeared. Like it wanted to stay. Like it wanted to remind me. I haven't been able to leave the house since. Something changed that night. It stopped being a visitor. Now it's an occupant. I hear it. At 3 a.m., every night. Sometimes the bell rings. Sometimes it taps the window. Other nights, it doesn't make a sound, but I wake up anyway, drenched in sweat, with the unshakable feeling that it's inside. Closer. Watching. Sometimes I think I hear breathing behind the walls. Once, I found the back door slightly open, even though I had sealed it with nails and a chair. Another night, my phone camera turned on by itself, and for a brief second, the screen showed a reflection of someone standing behind me. Only I was alone in the room. I've stopped trying to prove it to anyone. I've stopped trying to explain it. Because it's not something that wants to be understood. It wants to be experienced. Last night, it didn't ring the doorbell. Instead, it knocked. Once. Just once. And then I heard the deadbolt click. Not unlock. Click. Like someone gently tested it. I lay in bed, frozen, praying it would be over soon. But then, my phone buzzed. Motion detected, hallway. I didn't look. I wouldn't. But I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Barefoot. Crossing the hardwood just outside my bedroom door. They stopped in front of it. Paused. And then. A whisper. Let me in. I didn't move all night. When the sun rose, the hallway was empty. No prints. No signs. Just a faint, dark smudge on the floor. Like ash. Like something that had stood there and waited. For an answer. Now I sleep during the day. I board up the windows. Keep the lights on. I don't open the door. I don't check the cameras. And I haven't touched the doorbell in weeks. Because I know that the moment I do, it'll come back. It never left. It's just waiting. Watching. Ringing. And someday, when I'm too tired, too broken, Too curious. I might answer. And it will be standing there. Faceless. Silent. Smiling.